Last offseason, the Broncos made the massive move of trading for Russell Wilson, instantly elevating this team into contenders. Or so they thought. Things didn't exactly go as planned in 2022, as the play calling was poor, Russ seemingly looked cooked, and they ended up going 5-12. They removed the coaching staff at the end of the season, and now they enter 2023 with Sean Payton hoping for different results. Will it happen? Let's go ahead and discuss. And what's crack-a-lackin'? It's your boy Broshmo, just in case you did not know. So go ahead, become a bro and subscribe. Leave this video a thumbs up if you enjoy the content as always. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Let's have that nice, beautiful football discourses today. We're going to continue the deep dive series with the Denver Broncos, going over the coaching staff, the scheme, and the roster. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to give you my prediction for the Broncos in 2023. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this sucker, starting with the coaching staff. As I mentioned, Sean Payton is now in town, which was interesting because with Sean Payton's scheme, it's not exactly, I don't think it really lines up with where or how we've seen Russell Wilson succeed, which is typically like in Seattle, man. He was very much a deep field toward the sideline type of passer, while in a Sean Payton scheme, well, he really likes quick passes. He likes his quarterbacks to be able to go through progression, especially over the middle of the field, which middle field never really been Russell Wilson's strong suit. But we'll see if it ends up working out. It's going to be interesting, definitely. And we'll talk about Russ in a moment. But Sean Payton, if you didn't know, he was retired last season, formerly the Saints head coach for 15 years, and he brings a more of a modern pro spread scheme to the Broncos, one that's quick hitting. It likes to use that play action. It likes to use RPOs. I imagine it's still going to be a lot of that. I don't know how that'll work with Russ, but it'll be interesting nonetheless. I don't think they're going to get away from the deep ball. I mean, Sean Payton's shown that he does like the deep ball. He really tries to set that up with the run game, as this is a multi-power run blocking scheme that really likes to use these trap and counter run plays to get things going. I mean, this is a scheme that is just very good at adapting to whatever the opponent is giving you. And I am very excited. He brings over Joe Lombardi, who worked under Sean Payton for 12 years. Yeah, things didn't look great in Los Angeles last season for Lombardi, and he was let go. But he won't be making the play calls. At least I assume he's not going to be the play caller there. He will be answering to Sean Payton for all intents and purposes. But they bring in Vance Joseph, a very sexy hire. I really think this is probably the sexiest hire in terms of the coaching staff. They didn't even have to give away a first-round pick for it. But he was formerly the Cardinals DC, and I thought he did a hell of a job there. And he actually used to be he was a head coach for a season in Denver, and he brings that Wade Phillips type of defense that is attacking 3-4, very blitz heavy. He'll bring a variety of exotic blitz packages, and it's just very, very exciting. Typically leans on press man coverage, though with the Cardinals, he did lean a bit more on cover 2 and cover 3. I think cover 3 they ran like 40% of the time, but I think a lot of that was personnel. And luckily for him, the personnel here with the Broncos, they're going to want to run a lot of press man. They have the horses to do so, and I think it'll be very exciting. I mean, all in all, even if you don't consider Vance Joseph a upgrade from Giro, who's also a fabulous defensive coordinator in his own right, offensively, you're feeling a lot better than what you had with Nathaniel Hackett, where the play, again, I said the play calling at the beginning, it was poor. Just how they orchestrated drives, the time management, the field management. They had a lot of concepts where receivers were just running into one another. It just wasn't ran well last season. And Sean Payton, he brings a culture of like, nah, we're gonna get all this down to a T. You're gonna be running this offense spick and span. So Russ isn't cooked, which I guess is important now to kind of like flip to the offense. And the first thing we're going to talk about is Russell Wilson. But before that, I want to give a quick shout out to today's sponsor, Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is currently one of the most premier fantasy betting apps, and they got a best ball tournament with $15 million in cash prizes. So if you sign up at Underdog Fantasy using promo code Broshmo, they will match your first deposit up to $100. Remember, use promo code Broshmo when you sign up and they will match that first deposit up to $100 dues. We are knee deep in fantasy football season, and there is not a better place to play fantasy football than Underdog Fantasy. Currently, they got their best ball mania going on with $15 million in cash prizes, but they don't just stop at football. They do a variety of other sports. That way they have all your betting dreams and desires covered. But as always, bet responsibly, my friends. Let's go to the offense as we have Russell freaking Wilson not exactly having the most ideal year last season. It really wasn't, and I think he really showed at the intermediate part of the field his struggles. Like he just he wasn't a good mesh for Nathaniel Hackett's system, and I think that's where he was actually the most turnover prone with the football. As you look, 5 turnover worthy plays over the middle of the field on passes of 10 to 19 yards. So he kind of struggled in that area, and even in the short part of the field he wasn't entirely great. But where he did succeed last season, and this is where I felt like because I definitely thought by the end of the year Nathaniel Hackett's offense was running much better, but Russell Wilson was very good deep last season, especially by the tail end of the year. 22 big time throws to only 7 turnover worthy plays. A 41 adjusted completions percentage was exceptionally solid. So I don't think Sean Payton's gonna move away from that. I think he's gonna understand what he has in Russell Wilson, or at least what we all hope he has. Because I don't want to say Russ is cooked. I really don't. I know his last year in Seattle wasn't ideal, but keep in mind, he was playing pretty well until I think it was a broken finger. I'm not positive. It was something on his throwing arm. And that he kind of rushed back and just didn't look like the same player. And then last season, he kind of looked like that player we just saw the previous season, which led to a lot of people like, oh, Russ is cooked. The Broncos, this was a terrible trade. I definitely think by the end of the year, Russ was playing much better. But only time will tell. I'm not willing to say like, oh yeah, Russ, he could definitely return to this top 10 stats. Keep in mind, the guy will be 34 going on 35 during the season. So like he is definitely he's an older player, and if this doesn't pay dividends, then the Broncos, they really screwed the pooch on this sucker. But I don't believe that he's necessarily cooked. I still think he could be maybe in this like Kirk Cousins, Jared Goff. Oh, who was the other quarterback I was going to say? Ryan Tannehill level. I believe that's the level of play maybe to expect from Russ next season. I think that's probably a safe area. I almost said Josh Allen. Whew, Josh Allen, like top 3. Oh, maybe not. But hey, man, Russ still got some wheels to him, though. I expect them to get real fun with maybe some bootleg off the play action. Don't expect him to run a ton, but I mean, he's still got the wheels. He still can extend the play. But I feel like outside of anything they design, they, for the most part, want Russ to play and work inside the pocket, which is something he wasn't something that he was really known for over the course of his career. So it's definitely going to be something super interesting to watch, and it's going to pave the way for this offense, because I think he's got the playmakers. Unfortunately, Tim Patrick goes down to an ACL injury for the second year in a row, so he won't be available for this squad, which leads to the question then, who will be? who's that next guy up? And for me, I have to assume it's Marvin Mims. Maybe they give Marquez Callaway the nod because he's familiar with Payton's system, but that just doesn't sound right to me. I think they drafted Marvin Mims, a guy who he looks a little undersized, but he played majority of the time on the outside for the Sooners, and I think he could do that for the squad. Matter of fact, I mean, Jerry Jeudy played, I think, about 30 to 40% on the outside as well. I mean, if they're coming in 2 wide receiver sets, no questions asked. It's Courtland Sutton and it's Jerry Jeudy. But if they do go to those 3 wide, I think that we could expect maybe Marvin Mims and Jerry Jeudy to kind of be interchangeable there, as Marvin Mims more of this deep threat, kind of similar to Tim Patrick, but Tim Patrick, I would say, is probably the better contested catch guy by a bunch. But speaking of the contested catch, Courtland Sutton, man, this is a guy that has been plagued by injuries. He's been plagued by having Drew Lock as his quarterback for a couple of seasons. But we'll see with him, man. He's supposed to be this prototypical X, supposed to be very good at the contested catch. He has not been. I don't think he has registered a number over 50% since 2019. Don't quote me on that. We're going to take a quick look. Pop up Courtland Sutton, but yeah, the contested catch. Not since 2019. And even then, like, if you look at his, if we're going to not include 2020 since he was hurt, but the other 3 seasons, his highest one was 42.9%. Like, you have to be a better contested catch ball. Like, if you're going to go out there and kind of be the prototypical X, because he's not exactly a guy that's going to, like, wow people with his speed, but I'm not saying he's like slow by any means. Like, he's got like 4.55 speed, so that's solid for a bigger receiver, but he needs to show that he is capable of those contested catch balls, because Russell Wilson, man, he loves that. He wants his guys to go down field and win the jump ball. And Courtland Sutton's really the only guy that I can say confidently can do that on this squad. Like, Jerry Jeudy ain't gonna do it. Nope. Short arms, and it's just not his game, man. He's more of this shifty route runner that can create after the catch. Mims, hell no, he ain't gonna do it. And I mean, outside of that, looking at the depth here on the roster, like Kendall Hinton, he's not exactly that guy either. So, like, I don't know, man. Maybe Marquez Callaway will see more snaps than I anticipate. I think there is a good case to be made that he's in the running for that wide receiver 3 spot with Marvin Mims now that Tim Patrick went down. But let's look at the depth here at receiver. As I kind of mentioned a couple of these guys already. Jerry Jeudy, fabulous after the catch, fabulous route runner. Last season he had almost 1,000 yards and 6 tutties. I think he could create more after the catch than he did last season. But I mean, we will see. For the most part, like, this is a dude can be a consistent chain mover. It's just a very, very good athlete, but again, not a good contested catch guy. That's just not his game. Last season, 27.3%. It's just not in him. He doesn't have that dog in him. Callaway kind of mentioned that he might be that guy that can elevate and be the contested catch guy for Russ if they want him to be. Kendall Hinton here is honestly probably now very likely to make the squad. I mean, I feel like I got to bring up KJ Hamler. Ends up retiring, at least right now, from football because of a heart issue he has going on. So prayers out to him. But yeah, Kendall Hinton, I mean, he's really, really more of a slot guy, but I think he played actually a grip outside last season. Let's get that number. 47.8% outside. So it's like he's shown he's capable of it. So that'll be interesting. Other guys who could maybe make I mean, honestly, if they hold on to a 6 wide receiver, it's kind of a toss up. Little Jordan Humphrey, is a favorite of Sean Payton, so there's a good chance he could make the squad. But outside of that, maybe Montreal Washington. They have Montreal Washington, who's more of a slot, especially at his size. He's like 5'10", 170, but he's probably more of a long shot to make the team. So yeah, like the suddenly with a team that had Tim Patrick that looked like pretty deep becomes a lot less deep. And it almost feels by a country mile. But I mean, I'm very confident in Jerry Jeudy, Courtland Sutton. I think those are two very good threats, especially if Courtland Sutton has that back, that kind of a bounce back year after a few lackluster seasons. And again, part of that's injury. And then Jerry Jeudy, who kind of broke out last season, but I think will like continue that breakout this year. Greg Dolch is a phenomenal receiving threat, a guy that could just tear it up the seams. He is a nightmare, a mismatched nightmare. In terms of a run blocker, he's not your guy. He's not your guy. If you want him to run block, then you better get this cat in motion. I mean, that's why they bring in Chris Manhertz, who is exclusively a blocking tight end. They have Adam Troutman, who Sean Payton familiar with. He was the guy that he was the cat that drafted him, who's I think fairly solid at both as being a receiver and a blocker. Albert O kind of feels like the odd man out here at this point. It's not surprising he's listed fourth on the depth chart. More of a receiving threat there, and really not much else to talk about there at the tight end position. This is Dolchich. They're going to use Dolchich. They're going to use Manhertz and Troutman. That's going to be the three tight ends that we'll see playing time. Then we move to the running back, and I mean, in terms of what they can do for Russ, and I mean, we actually probably should talk about Javonte Williams' health, as there's been a lot of good reports out thus far that I know initially it was like, oh, this is a similar injury to what J.K. Dobbins had, and we saw how long it took for Dobbins to come back. But I mean, there were reports coming out just yesterday that Williams has not been limited in training camp. Huge signs. He hasn't had the setbacks that J.K. Dobbins had. So, hell yeah, I'm going to go ahead and list him as a starter here. Even if they don't get him going early, I think sooner or later, especially if there's no setbacks, I mean, he should be the guy getting the full workload. Like, Javonte Williams was phenomenal. In terms of what he can do in the receiving game, I can't say nothing. Like, if you could get the ball in his hands, then yeah, he's not half bad, because he's just so hard to bring down. I mean, dude, yeah, in the opener against Seattle, he had 65 receiving yards on 11 receptions. The year before, he had 300. So it's just a matter of, can he hold on to the football? He had 8.5% drop rate in 2021. I kind of want to pull from that since it was more than 4 games like we saw last season. But if you can get it in his hands, then he could make something happen. And I mean, run game included, man, 63 forced missed tackles on 203 carries. It's a very nice rate there. So, man, Javonte Williams, he was one of my favorite running backs coming out of that class with Travis Etienne, Najee Harris. I was a huge fan of his, so I hope he could come back, be healthy, especially for the squad, because I mean, we'll get to the offensive line. I think for me, it's probably the best part of this offense. But looking at the other running backs there on the roster, switching back over here, they signed Samaje Perine, who's fine. He can help in the passing game. He's I think, similar to Javonte Williams in that regard, and he is a solid enough running back too, in my opinion. I know he came up big for the Bengals last year when Mixon went down, but I don't think typically he's that guy. I think he's a solid 2. and I'm cool with that. They list Tony Jones Jr. here 3rd on the chart with depth chart, which, I mean, I think this tells me more so as a runner, because he's very much a bruiser, north-south runner. It's Tyler Beatty, who I always wanted to say Batty when he was coming out of Missouri, who is very fascinated here as a receiving threat, because he can legitimately run routes opposed to all the guys ahead of him. So he's definitely someone to watch out for in the receiving game. I don't think he's going to see a ton of action in the run game, but if we're going to just talk about more weapons that Russ has, because I know the Tim Patrick thing's kind of a big blow, but he still has Sutton. He still has Judy. He has Dulcich. He has a guy in Beatty here. Even though if Williams healthy, he's probably going to be the lead receiver there. But it's cool to see when your top running back comes off the field in these passing situations. You have a caliber of receiver as Tyler Beatty on your roster. It's really, really nice. Was he originally drafted by the Ravens? They ain't gonna tell me here. Can't remember if he was drafted by the Ravens. I thought initially when they brought him in that he was going to be a replacement in Baltimore for Justice Hill. And yeah, he went in the 6th round to the Ravens. And then they extended Justice Hill, which I was like, oh, okay. So yeah, no, Beatty, there's no place for him. And that's a scheme that typically likes more powerful backs. And Beatty's just not that. He's just a bit undersized. But looking at this offensive line, looking at the starters we got here, they bring in Mike McGlinchey, which, yeah, he's not a world beater, but he is exceptionally solid right tackle. Good athlete. Just good power in general, and you could almost say similar things about Ben Powers, who they bring in from Baltimore, who he's someone who has a strong frame, good mover. These guys aren't world beaters, but they help that offensive line creep back towards average. Like when I look at this offensive line, it's like, okay, so the weakest player on this offensive line is Lloyd Cushenberry. And that is that's phenomenal, because he kind of had a breakout season last year after kind of like he had a solid rookie year, and then the play definitely dipped for him. But like last year as a pass blocker, man, he was pretty darn solid. Unfortunately, year being cut short for him. But yeah, no, man, he definitely the trajectory turned on him, and it looks like he is trending up. It really does. I don't know. He might be the weakest run blocker on this squad, but I'm A-okay with that. Honestly, it's wild, man. I remember evaluating him, and one of the reps that I remember most is him getting trucked by who was the Auburn linebacker? Oh, it was so embarrassing. Oh, because yeah, there was this Auburn linebacker who just went in the draft this past season, who he's undersized, but he's kind of a freak. He plays with a lot of power, and he's just very explosive, and just all that momentum coming at Lloyd Cushenberry he just got flat backed. It was wild. All right, here we are. Owen Popo, there we go. And it's like, I remember that's like my most memorable rep of him. But like, honestly, since then has become a very solid player, especially much better as a pass protector. Quinn Miners played exceptionally well last season. He to me, it was kind of a breakout year in my opinion. Like he just looked exceptionally good in all facets of the game. Just a great find. He was a big name around the Senior Bowl when he came out. It was where did he come out? It was like something Wisconsin, right? It was some D3 school. But dude that played exceptionally strong. Wisconsin Whitewater, but exceptionally strong. And then his freaking pro day testing was out of this world. Like, how did a guy like that only go to Wisconsin Whitewater? It just blows my mind. And I haven't even talked about the best player on the offensive line being Garrett Bowles, who has really developed into one of the best left tackles in football. I think you have to say he's a top 10 guy, a guy that really cut down on his penalties. Like, holding calls were always kind of a big theme for him. And I think he's done a great job. He only had 6 last season, granted. He didn't play a ton. He was hurt. But prior to that, like, the holding plays were kind of few and far between. If we go to the year prior, yeah, he had that number. Yeah, he hasn't had double-digit penalties called on him in the last 3 seasons. You love to see it. So you want him to come back healthy, best player on this offensive line. With Lloyd Cushenberry, a guy who just kind of emerged last season as a solid center. I'm not ready to say he is like... I'm not ready to say that he is a must... I'm not ready to say he's this guy that can start anywhere in the NFL, because I didn't think the play was that good last season to warrant like, oh, this guy is a surefire starter. But it's enough to where it's like, if he's the weakest player on your offensive line's in exceptionally good shape. So all this whole offensive line will pay dividends with this scheme change. Though, to be fair, I mean, outside of Ben Powers, I really think all these guys would have no problem playing in Hackett's wide zone scheme. So, but yeah, no, Powers comes in because he brings a little bit more strength. Where did Dalton Reisner go, by the way? I think I'm just thinking of it right now. Like, I think he was brought in by the Vikings. Okay, interesting. That's wild that it surprised me a team has yet to pick him up. Blows my mind. Now, looking at the depth along this offensive line, Cam Fleming, solid enough depth at tackle. They have on the other side of that Isaiah Prince, who's more of a run blocker, a guy that you really probably don't want to start. But with this team's like injuries along the offensive line last season, I mean, you kind of gotta have some guys that are ready to start. You kind of do, and they bring in a project like DeMontre Jacobs out of South Florida, who you love the length, you love the athletic profile. However, total project. Like, he is very like unpolished. Like, doesn't know what he's doing from a technical standpoint. Doesn't know how to use that length. So, someone who he will not see the field in year one. Alex, oh man, how do you say that name? Palazewski? I don't know. Tackle from Illinois. He originally was going to be in the 2022 draft, but injury came up, I believe, at the Shrine Bowl, the Shrine Bowl, because it was him and who was the Washington guard / tackle? I can't recall, but injury led to those two actually staying an extra year in college. And from a technique standpoint, this dude's ready. I think he could play tackle or guard. Again, being a rookie, you kind of don't want to see him early, but coming into, like, if he needs to come in a pinch, then outside of Fleming, that's the guy I want. Like, Prince is that bad of a pass protector. They do bring in, though, Will Sherman, who really hasn't seen a ton of play, but he's kind of been a project of Bill Belichick's. It's kind of bounced around the league last 2 seasons, but I think he's good. He's got guard tackle flexibility. They also bring in Yazir Durant, who's more of a swing tackle, really. They list him here as guard. We got Quinn Bailey. I couldn't tell you much about him, though he did see some playing time last year. Kyler Fuller, the guard / center in this regard, bad. If he's starting, you're in bad trouble. Luke Wattenberg had to play some games last year, didn't exactly look great, and not exactly a good fit for Sean Payton's system. So, we'll see. Alex Forsythe, Forsythe. I don't exactly feel like he's a great fit either. He's a technician, but he's not really athletic, and I wouldn't say he's really strong either. He's just a good technician. He's just very clean. But I think there's a chance he makes the team over Wattenberg, because Wattenberg's undersized center. So, like, the interior talent's actually kind of crap. I think Henry Bird, wasn't this the Princeton cat? I kind of liked him because he had really good measurables. He tested out really well. He had good numbers, but someone that probably shouldn't start right away as a undrafted UDFA or undrafted free agent. So really, you're looking at this, and they're if injury, they're thin. If injury happens, you have Cam Fleming. And I'm going to stop there. You have Cam Fleming. So that's a little bit scary. But overall, as you can see, I gave this offense a 16 to 20 ranking. Because that's kind of the $1 million question: is Russ washed? Is he cooked? Is Mr. Unlimited limited? It'll be interesting to see, especially how he fits into Sean Payton's offense. I feel really good about the run game, really good about the offensive line, but if injuries do occur, like we've already seen a receiver, then this team could be in a lot of trouble. But let's go ahead, talk about the defenses. I got them as a top 10 defense. Easy. They made some quality additions with Zach Allen, who I think is a bit more well-rounded than Draymond Jones. Draymond Jones, for me, was more so a penetrator, a pass rusher. Zach Allen's kind of more of the total package, and really that's the only noteworthy addition on this squad for the most part. They chose to bring in guys via the draft, but I mean, they got a lot of good players here. Just starting with that offensive line, or defensive line, excuse me. You got Randy Gregory, who unfortunately wasn't healthy last season, but went on the field, played 6 games, 20 pressures, 2 sacks. And you're kind of hoping that he can stay healthy, because really, if he goes down, it's not that impressive of a group, because, well, that's not fair. They bring in Frank Clark, who is kind of the J.R. Smith in the NFL. He is just a very streaky player, and it just so happened every year with the Chiefs, he'd get streaky during the playoffs, where it'd be oh, he looks like the stud, but he does a hot lot of nothing during the season. And now he comes in here and he kind of basically gets to be the edge 3. And I feel good about that. That's a really good pickup. So I can't really say that even if Gregory goes down, that the pass rush looks a little meh. Baron Browning, undersized, played off ball. Well, it was okay. At Ohio State, he initially was an edge player. Then he moved to off ball linebacker, who would occasionally get rushed off the edge, kind of what Jack Sawyer's doing right now for Ohio State. And comes to the NFL, and they decide, hey, we're going to mainly kick you out as a pass rusher. And he was actually very good in that regard, 38 pressures, 6 sacks. But the thing was, this dude is a finesse player, very much finesse, lacks ideal length, and isn't exactly super powerful. He's not going to do much in the run game, but can get to the passer. And I mean, shoot, they got Nick Bonito. Here, let me move to this so y'all can see the depth chart. But they also have Nick Bonito, who is a very similar player in that regard, undersized, lacks ideal length, and more of a finesse player. who isn't going to play the run well. So they got two guys that are very similar in that regard. Jonathan Cooper, who is a very I would say a very middle athlete, very mid. And he's just a decent depth player at this point. So yeah, Gregory goes down. And this is what the thing. I like bringing in Vance Joseph, who is just a very good at being able to scheme up pressure via the blitz for his defense. So maybe I shouldn't be all that worried if injury does happen. And I bring on Randy Gregory because he's a guy that only played 500 snaps once in his career. Part of that was suspension, part of that was injury. But moving to the defensive interior, we got DJ Jones, who I believe was a snap leader on the interior last year. I don't know, he was edged out by Draymond, but Draymond's not here anymore. Neither is Deshaun Williams, but Deshaun Williams did edge him out by about 20 snaps. But guy that's just solid player. He could push the pocket. Had 30 pressures and 2 sacks last season, so fairly solid. Zach Allen, who kind of had somewhat of a breakout year or standout season and ended up getting the big contract, but a better value deal than what Seattle ended up paying for Draymond Jones. So him just being kind of solid at everything kind of works out for the squad. It really does, because it's a team that wants to get better at stopping the run game, and they have the horses to do so. They really do. But they have also a very, very deep interior depth. While I wouldn't say they have any all-stars, they got a lot of good guys. One of my favorite here, Mike Purcell. Wherever he goes, he's typically more of a depth rotation guy, but the play has always been good. Very good player they have there. Matt Henningsen, who they drafted out of, I think it was Wisconsin or was it Nebraska? Those red and white schools always get me. It was Wisconsin. He's a bit undersized for the interior. He's more of a penetrator. He's at 291. So yeah, undersized. More of a penetrator. More of this 3-tech type of player that they have. They have guys like Jordan Jackson, who was a UDFA coming out of Air Force, who, since he was playing in a service academy, that he needed to get an NFL weight room, but he was very productive at Air Force. Tyler Lancaster, someone who is very familiar with the Vance Joseph scheme. They signed PJ Mustapher, and to be fair, he might be a guy that sticks just because he is a very good run stuffer. That was a theme, man. It wasn't like he ends up not going drafted. I thought he probably could have snuck into like late day 3. Just because typically that skill set of these just run stuffers, very good run defenders, are typically a dime a dozen. Though it does feel like as of late, the defensive interior classes have been lighter and lighter. That won't be the case for this upcoming draft. They got some big boys. But PJ Mustapher was that big boy. Not a great athlete, but he's a big body, good run stuffer, not a great pass rusher. So maybe someone that surprisingly could find a role. I think he makes the team 100%. Let's go 99. Let's leave some room in there just in case. So overall, like the defensive line there, if we're going to include edge rushers there, I think it looks strong. It's above average. I would put them in that like 10 to 15 range. I feel good about that. Whether it's stopping the run or get into the passer. And then, I mean, they got 2 exceptionally solid run defenders at linebacker in Josie Jewell and Alex Singleton. Matter of fact, Alex Singleton had himself a hell of a season last year, where he wasn't He's typically not a good coverage player. It's kind of the big gripe I have with him. And he played it exceptionally well in coverage last season. How he'll do this year in a bit of a different scheme, that'll be a question. It's not like he's the most lateral player. He's not. He's someone that likes to play north and south. You kind of say the same thing about Josie Jewell. Singleton, I would say, is a bit more explosive, though. Jonas Griffin, how many snaps did Griffin see last year? 300, and he was fairly average. But someone that I know Denver Broncos fans have kind of hyped up for a little bit, and like he saw playing time because of injury, I believe, in 2021, and was fairly solid there. But he provides good depth. Drew Sanders, who they drafted, probably doesn't see the field early, but he brings this nice pass rush and upside from the linebacker position. Remember, Vance Joseph, he was second last season in blitz rate with the Cardinals. So Sanders honestly could probably see the field actually fairly soon, even if it's just for that. He was initially an edge player at Alabama before transferring to Arkansas to play more off-ball linebacker. And great athlete. It's just in coverage, it's still clicking for him, or the feel for coverage. It's just not all clicking yet for him, which, to be fair, he's a rookie. Sometimes linebackers, especially in today's NFL, they take a couple of years until you really find out what you have in them. It's very similar to offensive line in that regard. It's very interesting. They really, I don't think, have anyone else, I think, that really are worth a mention. I didn't even mention the Iowa State defensive tackle, because here, let's move to this. So, because I forget, he's suspended for the first 6 games of the season. Ioma Ozarike, who was a very interesting body. Stupid long, like good size. What do they have him at currently? 320. Oh, super long. Mainly played edge there. Well, like 4I for Iowa State, and someone who showed that they had like some moves. Like they weren't bad with their hands and whatnot. Like the anchor was kind of meh, but someone I'm interested to see how the development's gone with, but we won't see him for the first part of the season. Now, I think this offense or this defensive front will be fairly solid at stopping the run, fairly good at getting pass rush, especially now with Vance Joseph. Even if injuries do occur, I have confidence that Joseph will keep this team in terms of like pressure rate in the top half of the league. But it's the freaking secondary that makes this team a top 10 team for me. Because you can bet your sweet cheeks there are going to be a ton of coverage sacks. Patrick Surtain, one of the top corners in the league. Excuse me. And even better, I feel like he could play in any scheme and he'll be wonderful, but especially in a press man, because he was a bit of a technician coming out of Alabama. In the slot, they got Kawan Williams, who is probably one of the more underrated slot players in the league. He is very good. He just does a good job. Was he beat up last year too? Where are you at, Kawan? There he is. Okay, he almost had 600 snaps. But yeah, no, he was stupid good, dude. 7 pass breakups and an interception. Hello. Completion. When it comes to these slot corners, don't really pay attention so much to completion rate, because it's going to be exceptionally high compared to outside receivers. It's just a little easier to catch balls in the slot. For the offense, that is. Damari Mathis really showed out as a rookie last season. A guy that's super physical and super willing to play the run. And someone who played a good amount of press actually over at Pittsburgh. Yeah, Pittsburgh. And he is just he's gonna be a good fit for Vance Joseph's scheme. So I'm actually a big fan of that. I think the interesting name here is Riley Moss, because I see him more as a cover 3 guy, which, to be fair, I mean, that's what Joseph did a lot in Arizona. Granted, a lot of that was dictated based on the personnel, but I mean, I'm willing to say that he's a good, really fast athlete, so I'm not going to say he can't do it. The depth here is kind of lackluster. It doesn't surprise me that they bring in like Fabian Moreau, who has experience playing press. And, you got actually Jaquan McMillan. Didn't he have like former Eastern Carolina corner? Didn't he have like a very good like back end of the year for the Broncos? Oh, so okay, I say back end of the year. He literally only played the season finale, and he wasn't half bad because he was playing in the slot. I mean, 5'9", you kind of have to, but allowed a 45.5% completion rate in the slot in that final game against the Chargers. That's pretty solid. The same Bassey, kind of thought he was a slot coming out of Wake Forest. They're not going to retain all these slot guys. Fayon Hicks, I believe, was a slot coming out of Wisconsin. So it's probably McMillan, the guy who actually had a very good game last season, that'll be the backup here. But like looking at the rest of the cornerbacks, like Tremaine Smith, I honestly couldn't tell you much about Tremaine Smith. I don't recall ever really watching him ever. Art Green coming out of Houston, probably a long shot to make the roster. So the depth's not great if injury does happen at the corner position, though you feel better about it if Quan Williams goes down, that you feel like Jaquan McMillan could be solid enough in that regard. Going to the safety position, as if you didn't notice, I have Kenyon Stearns as the starter over Kareem Jackson, because I just think Stearns is the guy that they invested draft capital in, 5th rounder in the 2021 class. He's coming into, I believe, a contract year this season. No, next season. So he's coming into year 3. So you kind of want to know what you have in him. But I do think he's a better fit for this defense in general. Like Kareem Jackson, I think more so is in this defense, more so a box safety. He's just not as athletically gifted as Caden Stearns is. So I think he's going to kind of get the nod there. Justin Simmons, fabulous, one of the best safeties in the league. Actually, with Caden Stearns and Simmons on the field at the same time, they can kind of interchange roles. If you want one in the box and one playing deep, the offense won't have any idea who you're sending. So it's like, I kind of like that more than Kareem Jackson. Kareem Jackson, I guess, kind of falls into this like dime backer type of role here. Keep in mind, he was also a former corner. Just kind of moved to safety to kind of like extend his career as the athletic traits started to fall off. So someone that could come in and be a really good dime player for him. PJ Locke's more of a special teamer. Switching back over here. They did. That'll be an interesting thing. I mean, JL Skinner probably could start on IR. Recovering from the torn pec, that's typically 6 months, right? So JL Skinner, which was a fascinating player, because I thought he was going to probably make the transition to linebacker. That's just kind of the type of player he was. He's not like a phenomenal athlete at the safety position, like solid north-south guy, but when it comes to like changing direction or just lateral movement in general, I don't want to say clunky, but it was kind of slow motion-esque. So I kind of thought he would at least put on some weight and maybe move to linebacker, and I think that works out really well. But honestly, in this system, it kind of works. Turner Yell, though, don't know if he makes the squad former 5th rounder out of the 2022 class, because he was built more for like a quarters like scheme, which, I mean, funny enough, if they cut him, man, that could be a pickup for the Panthers, because Evero got a good look at him last year. But like, all in all, man, while yeah, you don't love the depth at corner, your starting 3 corners might be they're a top 10 trio. Your safeties there, you have one of the best safeties in the league. You have one of the most savvy players in the league in Kareem Jackson. Caden Stern, someone who is exceptionally athletic. That's just for him, like my biggest problem him coming out of Texas was just the same thing as Brandon Jones. It just seems like the game was too fast for him. But he's kind of coming to his own. I think he played a little over 275 snaps last season, but he was solid. Tackle rate kind of sucked. Missed tackle rate, excuse me. But like, all in all, man, I'm a big fan of the defense. I said they're deep in the front 7. While I don't think they have any stars in the front 7, there's no like elite players. Like, we're not talking about like TJ Watt, Myles Garrett. They don't have like a Chris Jones, a Jeffrey Simmons. There's no one there, even as a linebacker. There's no Fred Warner. There's no Bobby Wagner. There isn't a Shaquille Leonard. But you could argue everyone on their defensive like front 7 are average to above average starters. And then you go to the depth and it's like they got some depth. I like it. And I don't think while Evero, very good coach, Vance Joseph been around the league a long time, or at least what feels like a long time. I don't think it's really much of a fall off in DC. So yeah, I'm actually pretty happy with that. So I guess without further ado, let's just go ahead and get to my predictions for the Denver Broncos going into next season. And I have them going 10-7, 2-5 against playoff teams. So obviously I don't have them doing well against playoff teams. They have for me, a middle of the road strength of schedule. I think they were 16th on my rankings. So solid. They were very good against losing teams and not ideal against winning teams. Let's just go ahead with the game by game. I have them splitting the division with every team. So they split games with Raiders, Chiefs, and Chargers. They open the Raiders, they open Washington. So those are kind of actually 2 favorable matchups, both at home. Denver's been known to be good in September. I know last year they weren't, but prior to that, they've typically been a September team. They get my Dolphins, fins up, baby, fins up. They're coming soon on my deep dive. Can't wait to talk about my Dolphins. So I got the Dolphins winning in Miami. I got Denver gonna win over the Bears. They lose to the Jets. So Hackett's revenge, in Denver nonetheless. Let's be honest, it's Aaron Rodgers. It's not Hackett that's going to win that game. Then we got the Chiefs. I got them beating the Packers. Again, I have them splitting with the Chiefs. They go into their bye. It's kind of rough because you get the Bills out of your bye. So, I mean, I think that's a winnable game. But again, it kind of depends on what Russell looks like. Beating Minnesota, beating Cleveland, beating the Texans, and I have them losing the Chargers and the Detroit Lions. So, like, honestly, I have them winning games. They should win. And I mean, there's some of these tough games, like Detroit. They were a hot team at the end of the year. I mean, the Chargers, who knows what to expect from the Chargers? They're always interesting. I'll say that. Buffalo's always going to be a tough outing. I mean, the AFC is just going to be tough in general. So, I don't know. We'll see. The over-under is 8.5. And I feel really good about this squad. I think I'm willing to take the over on 8.5. It's just the one thing you can't project for, injury, and this team was kind of like crippled a bit by big injuries last season. On top of that, is Russ cooked? Russ is like the biggest question. I talked about that in my last deep dive. I did the Cleveland Browns. If you want to check that out, check it out. But I talked about how the Browns are such a mystery because I have no idea with Deshaun Watson. How will he return to that elite status? Also, if you remember in that video, I talked about how he came from like a Bill O'Brien scheme to Kevin Stefanski, and it's a vastly different scheme. We have Russell Wilson, who was coming from, who's the OC? Wasn't it Waldron? I think it was Shane in Seattle. But coming from that, going to Hackett, which was more of this like RPO, quick passing scheme, to which Sean Payton, a little bit more of the same, but it's more adaptable. So I have a bit more faith in that. But again, is he cooked? Remember, when he returned from the injury, he didn't look good. Granted, I thought he returned too early, but then that same Russell Wilson showed up last season. To be fair, it was a much better Russell Wilson by the end of the year. So we'll see. The Broncos are a very fascinating team. But that's it for the video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I love hearing all your bad opinions. Since I'm out here giving mine, you might as well give yours as well. But until next time, you be easy, my friends. Later.